How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
My goodness, that is an extraordinary onslaught in the last 10 from Afghanistan. 113 runs that have powered them to 325 in this all-important fixture in the Champions Trophy in Lahore. They won the toss, they wanted to bat, and they were led by a mighty 177 from Ibrahim Zadran. We talk about that. We talk about whether the story is more about the explosive batting from Afghanistan or just an English implosion with the ball towards the end of that innings. On Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. Nick Knight had said 280 after he thought about that on the pre-show. Urooj Mumtaz said, yeah, 280 sounds about right. And then she saw the ball flying all around the Gaddafi Stadium. Let me get Nick's thoughts first. That is some finish to the innings, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely dramatic stuff, wasn't it? Clearly brilliantly set up. Ibrahim Zadran, I thought that was one of the finest knocks I've seen for a long, long time, because it kind of enabled things to play out in the room. So give him an immense amount of credit for that. Boy, I mean, 37 for 3. I was probably thinking, like a lot of people, this game might be over pretty quickly. England ability again to pick up wickets in those middle overs. I think it was a 20-over period where England picked up wickets, but take nothing away. You know, the surface here is favouring batting, so it's not straightforward for these guys just to come on and take wickets. But I thought that was absolutely terrific. If I'm brutally honest with you, I don't, you know, it's difficult to know whether that's par. It's certainly not plus par. But one thing we do know is England have to play terrifically well to win this game. But if they do play well, I still believe they will win the game. But of course, it's going to come down to spin in the middle.
Oh, yeah, that's so much more to talk about going ahead, looking ahead to the second innings. And Urooj, I know you're one to watch every ball of the 50 overs, but by chance, if you got up and took a bit of a walk at the end of the 35th, 40th, you're saying, yeah, this will probably finish at the 280 that I predicted. And then what was the atmosphere like when just madness took place in the last 7-8 overs?
Yeah, the Maruti you were sending me took a U-turn and went back to you, didn't it? With my 280 prediction, it's not coming my way anymore. But yeah, I think a credit to Afghanistan, a credit where credit is due. Individual brilliance, Ibrahim Zadran, absolutely fantastic. We spoke, in fact, at the top of the show that he happens to be Afghanistan's most consistent and most reliable top order bat, and for him to carry the bat, highest individual Afghanistan score, highest individual scored in ICC Champions Trophy, and plays to Afghanistan's template where they get runs on the board and they'll hope that the dew stays when the spinners come in. This could actually be a game to watch.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Ibrahim Zadran. And yep, it is a special day for him. He's now registered the highest score by an Afghan batter in men's ODIs. Ben Duckett's highest score in Champions Trophy history has lasted 4 days. That was a record that lasted 21 years before Duckett got the 165 that he did. Nick, when you look at Ibrahim Zadran as a batter, what do you see?
Well, I see someone that did the job a whole lot better than I did all those years ago. I mean, kind of obviously we had very similar roles. So I kind of, when I was seeing the innings, I was kind of playing it out as I would have done or tried to have done all those years ago. So I have huge amounts of respect for the way he went about it. Obviously, the numbers look after themselves. That's a massive score. But when you're 37 for 3, the game kind of plays out in front of you a little bit. So I kind of he identified the match situation perfectly. He played accordingly. And he was the pillar of strength, really, where Nabi at the end, Umar Azai, I thought he came good. I talked about him a little bit at the top of the show. Obviously, Hashmatullah, you know, they kind of played around him. So that was the first thing, that he identified that situation. The second thing is sometimes when you get to 100 or a big score in a big match, you just lob one up in the air and my job's done, I'm walking off, it's now to the other guys. None of that whatsoever. And that will be the difference between getting a sort of 300 plus score and that 280 that we talked about, because they were able to play around him even right at the end there. So I have a huge amount of respect for the way that he went about this in such a big game. I mean, clearly his timing was beautiful. I love the way he played against Rashid. I love the way he controlled the middle overs. I've always thought he was a very good player of spin. I didn't know he was quite as good as that against pace.
Is that something that we've seen recently? I think there's a level that he's gone up, hasn't he, Urooj? We've seen Ibrahim Zadran get hundreds before. And the point Nick makes about how he just went into a different year, I think 101 of 106 and then 77 of 34.
Yeah, I think on the surface is where we thought that the X factor for England would have been the pace. I thought he played it really well. We also spoke about the fact that they will try the short ball against the Afghanistan openers because of that pace, and I thought he played that really well as well. And I think just the way he constructed not just his innings but the entire first innings score for Afghanistan when they were 37 for 3. Him and Shahidi built a partnership. It came obviously slightly slower than a run-up ball, but it was important for him to stay out there, even towards the back end. I did feel, however, England sort of let themselves down with some very ordinary bowling. Didn't think they had a bit of an answer to when the onslaught was on. And what Ibrahim Zadran actually did was he wasn't bashing the ball. He just did very good cricketing shots. He made use of the ball that was in the slot. They didn't try the wide Yorkers or just the conventional Yorkers as well. Failed to miss their length when they did try that. But I think he's a phenomenal player, and I think just the way he constructed his big score, and then obviously the fourth, fifth, and sixth innings, fifth wicket partnerships with Shahidi, Omar Zai, and Nabi, just to provide the impetus at the right times.
Pick up from that, Nick, and carry on about the England bowling plans.
Well, I said before, I think the show.
I know you're going to be repeating yourself, but yeah, go on.
Well, no, but it kind of plays out a little bit.
Yes.
That there are factors here that slightly frustrate because when you play your fifth bowling option of Root and Livingston, that's fine. And actually, when you look at the numbers, they've done a pretty good job here. I think they went for 50 from their 10, Root and Livingston. But what it does for Josh Butler, it makes it very difficult to control the innings if anything doesn't quite go A+ to plan. And it didn't again with Bryden Castle, and it didn't again today with Mark Wood. It just makes things a little bit more tricky. So I just think I think two things. One, I think they're a bit one pace on a number of occasions, and two, I think with the fact that their bowling lineup is still trying to find its mojo, I just think they're a bowler light. I don't think that's helping the situation at all. Adil Rashid is clearly the best, in the middle overs. He too has been milked a little bit at times in the last couple of games, and why? Why? Because they know they've got the fifth bowling option if they have to go to it. So I just don't feel it's quite clicked. I don't feel it's quite worked. I mean, you go back to the glory days in 2019 World Cup final and the lead up to that. Liam Plunkett is not a name that often people refer to with that England white ball side. It's often forgotten, his name. But do you know what? Along with Adil Rashid in those middle overs, he played an absolutely pivotal, crucial role game after game. And it's exactly what we're talking about now with England's inability to do that. And that's to break stubborn partnerships in the middle. He was the enforcer, Rashid at one end, Plunkett at the other, break open a partnership, finish the innings. Now, I know it's only early days for this group of players, but that is the sort of thing that they're going to have to find a way. Whether it's Sam Curran, whether it's pace off like Nathan Ellis, whether it's the extra pace, England have got to work that out for themselves. But they have to try and find answers to those questions.
Yeah, I think I actually want to go deeper into this, but perhaps we'll reserve it just to see how this goes, this game. And yes, Livingston and Root actually had gone for 10 overs and about 50, and then he had to force another couple of overs of Joe Root. That was expensive towards the end. Urooj, you saw all this play out in front of you at the ground. You often get an idea of body language, field changes, and how it all sort of went about. What did you observe?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of sort of teapots, hands on knees, shoulders dropping, and this wasn't before the onslaught. This wasn't at the time of the onslaught. This was in that middle phase where England was struggling to break the game open, because although that they milked obviously singles in that middle period that you referred to, with when the spin was on, it wasn't like England was in control. It didn't look like England was missing the bat, the ball was turning, or the ball was nipping off. Afghanistan looked like they were in control all the time. And then I think with Joss, you could see there was obviously that confused look on his face, because maybe a conversation around captaincy, obviously, I just feel that this might be it for him. The Joe Root, with all his experience, also was time just sort of seemed lost for ideas. I didn't see a lot of players running up to Joss, maybe trying to sort of influx ideas, or sort of somebody going up to the bowler. It just felt that they were receiving end of very, very good cricket, and they all seemed a bit flat at the moment.
Yeah, lovely man, Josh Butler. But Nick, I wonder if sometimes when the opposition's getting runs and they're leaking boundaries, where the game just drifts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game, this, isn't it, for Josh Butler? I know there's a bit of media speculation about whether this might be it if they don't win. I think he too said that he feels the pressure of that, and I think in a press conference, I mean, that's an inevitable comments really with the way England's performances have run. My honest thoughts, guys, on Joss's captaincy. I think captaining a one-day side, a white ball side now has a couple of challenges. One, there's so much analytics, there's so many numbers and information. There are people there tapping away matchups. You've got to bowl him then, you've got to bowl them then. And if you're not careful as a captain, you get sort of waylaid with deep thoughts about the game playing out in front of you almost before it's played out. I thought what Eoin Morgan was so brilliant at was being able to dissect all the information and have a really good gut feel about the moments in the game. The ebbs and flows of matches, the numbers might tell you something, but Eoin Morgan had that ability to almost dismiss the information he was getting at times and say, you know, my gut feel is to go that way. It's not what everyone's telling me. And that, I think, is Joss's real challenge here, to come to terms with the ebbs and flows of a game when they start ebbing and flowing. And that is what he has to get a whole lot better at. Whether that comes with more time, whether that comes with time down the line with McCullum. I mean, there's a very different feel for Joss now with McCullum as his sidekick and as his main coach. I think there's a huge amount of respect between the two. That'll be something for down the line. But as I say, that is really his challenge. When the game's not quite going to plan, what have you got to come up with?
Yes, Urooj.
Yeah, Raunak, just throwing it back to Nick. Nick, do you think is it a case of obviously him not even having the resources, and he's a bit hamstrung with that? When he does look around, they're already struggling with the fifth bowling option and part-timers. Do you think that also adds to that the 15 doesn't provide him that resource in the 11?
Nick, did you pick that up?
No, sorry, can you just say that again?
Urooj was just saying that is he also struggling with resources? They're looking for a bowler and they can't find one.
Well, yes, I take your point, and again, I've said England's bowling is a bit one-paced, and therefore I think what they need is something in the middle to break that up, whether that's a current or a left-arm option. They've tried that in the past. The other thing that actually, when you inevitably make comparisons between the previous captain Eoin Morgan and the current incumbent in Jos Buttler, you look at the players that Eoin had around him, and it was a very, very established build-up of players with a lot of experience, from Johnny Bairstow to Jason Roy. Some of these guys, Joe Root obviously is there now. And Ruji sort of mentioned actually that Jos got a little isolated perhaps on the ground at times when things weren't going well. Having been in that position myself as a captain, what you want is senior players, a whole heap of senior players, just to somehow give you some information, give you some feeling that maybe there's some help coming your way. I sometimes feel with Jos, with the structure of the side and the fact that they're building ahead again, that's not always the case for Jos. So it's not always straightforward for him in that instance.
To just add to that point of Urooj, I just wanted to double check the squad, since if I've got it right, Nick, but have they actually picked their best bowling attack? There is Gus Atkinson. I like what I saw of Saqib Mahmood, a little bit that I saw of him in India. You talk about the Plunkett role. Do they have the personnel, but they've not quite thought they're good enough to be in the 11?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, you're right with the two players you mentioned. I mean, Gus Atkinson has had an outstanding year, particularly in Test match cricket. Don't forget, he played a little bit in the white ball tour of India. It didn't go for him. He got clobbered a little bit in the T20. He got clobbered a little bit in the 50 over stuff. So they tried him, and I think that's probably just a bit more of an experience feel for him. The one I would really look at is Saqib Mahmood. I'm a big fan of Saqib Mahmood, not just with the new ball, but at the death. I think he's going to give options at the start and the end of the innings. And again, in the pre-show, we talked a little bit about the balance of the side. If it were me, I'd be looking to bring him into that and add an extra seamer. They might go with Rayan Ahmed, of course, has been called up for Bryden Cast. But I feel they need a bit of assistance. Whether it be Saqib, would probably be my choice, or another option of spin. But I just feel, that this side needs a few more options with the ball, particularly in the middle.
Well, if they don't chase this down, they might go back home with Rayan Ahmed as well. He's delayed with his visa, I believe. So let's see how that goes. Now let's look ahead to the chase. 350 was chased ridiculously easy. England would know that themselves, Urooj. And from what we've seen today in Lahore, is there any reason to believe it's going to be more challenging, or these runs are very much there to be chased down?
Yeah, 100%. I think England will have to back themselves. Now, obviously, a different looking batting England when you compare them with their bowling stocks. And they put up 351 the other day. So they've got the resources, they've got the depth, they've got the quality and that mindset when you talk about their batting to chase this down. However, still no due yet. So Afghanistan will be hoping that remains the case, because I think England's challenge will be Mohammad Nabi, Rashid Khan and Noor Ahmed. All three very versatile, all three very different. and pose their own set of challenges. So if they can provide the squeeze, hopefully if they can get the game impacted in the top in the first, and Fazlullah Farooqi probably hasn't churned out the same number of wickets in the first part of the play as he does towards the back end. But I think Afghanistan also have a well-rounded bowling attack, great fielders as well. So conditions haven't changed much. If anything, again, under lights, the surface plays a little bit better with the ball coming on. So Afghanistan will hope the dew remains away, and England will probably just want to repeat and put everything aside that's happened in the first innings.
Yeah, if I picked that up correctly, Urooj, you said it's less likely that we'll have dew tonight?
Yeah, less likely because the cloud cover is still there. The drop in temperature, not so much. So the science that I've been told is not that smart myself, but what I've been told is that dew might just stay away.
You're only a doctor, but as we just have a look at, we have a look at the numbers for Afghanistan's quicks, this might actually give England even more confidence that their pacers haven't been in the best of form. They rank 8th in terms of wickets taken, bowling average, economy and strike rate in the last couple of years in one-day international cricket. So that isn't auguring well. If the dew comes in and the spinner's threat is reduced, these runs are very much there to be had. Mindset for English batters, Nick, this is not just runs, it's runs on the board in an effective knockout game.
Yeah, which will add nothing more than lots and lots of pressure. If my gut feel is this is where England would rather have been at the start of play, not so much chasing the big score, but batting second, that'd be hope there's due. I think they're much happier batting second rather than finding a tempo that works batting first, as they tried to do in the first game against Australia and fell a little bit short. I think their comfort zone is more in this situation. Interesting those numbers that you guys just put up there, because when I watch Afghanistan, I don't think what the numbers show me, but I also think that Afghanistan's bowlers, Farooqi used to be Naveen or Hack, who's not playing, but Farooqi in particular in this game, I think is a really good bowler. And I think the problem sometimes when you look at the numbers is that sides feel the threat. All we've talked about with Afghanistan is Noor Ahmed, Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nami, spin in the middle overs, Mujib in the time they play. So what sides tend to do, and I think this is what England will do here in the next few minutes, they'll attack Farooqi, they'll attack the opening bowlers, Omar Azai, they'll go at Gulbuddin because they feel they need to get ahead of the game a little bit. So sometimes their strike rates and their averages will be a little higher. But can they pick up a wicket? And if they do, then it makes life a whole lot easier for Rashid Khan, who, by the way, will bowl very differently to Adil Rashid. He'll be into the surface, so it'll be a slightly different challenge. But in answer to your question, England have got to go in that power play. That is what they have to do. They have to tick off 10 overs and they have to be up way above the rate because they do know that things might not get any easier. Now, that might just bring in your opening bowlers to pick up a couple of wickets and set it up. That's where the game is going to pick up nicely. England have got to rotate the strike. It's not Delhi. It's not Kotla. It is Lahore on a flat pitch and possibly come on under lights. England have to bear that in mind.
Right, there we go then. So much on the line in the ICC Men's Champions Trophy, given how much Nick loves his predictions. And Urooj, you want that car turning back towards you? You start.
Well, I think they have got the runs, but I think England will chase this down. So you better send that car back to me then.
Okay. Nick?
Well, I'm going to be patriotic. I've got to stick with England. I don't think it's a plus-par score. And with the conditions as they are, England scoring 350 in the last game, there's plenty of confidence there. I'm backing England to chase this down.
Might I just quickly ask Urooj for what the atmosphere is like? It seems like a lot of Afghan support in Lahore.
It's not a lot, it's all Afghanistan support, and I think they've been absolute treat because they've had a good first innings. And it's actually good. Some of the stands on the side of the square are absolutely full, and they're turning out quite a few loud decibels here, so it's good to watch.
Excellent. Let's see if England can just make that noise or that crowd silent, like we know captains who want to beat the crowd tend to do. Nick Knight, Urooj Mumtaz, fascinating 50 overs of play ahead of us. Let's pick up the chat at the end of the game to see whose semi-final hopes are still alive in the ICC Men's Champions Trophy. Join us for post-match analysis on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.